It's not just about, okay, cut a chunk out of your belly, close it up, it'll look better, you'll feel better. There's a lot more to that.
It's not about being a plastic surgeon. It's not about making money. It's about changing people's lives. Hi, I'm Dr. Rozbeh Torabi.
Dr. Radbeh Torabi.
The dynamic duo of elite plastic surgeons. An insight into a doctor's life.
We come from this 20,000 square foot mansion, come to the US, and we're in this 2-bedroom apartment trying to figure out what we're gonna do.
Physician burnout rate's been over 50% in the last 2-3 years.
During my clinical rotations, the first 10 months, I was like, man, I chose the wrong thing to do. I hate this.
If you're gonna have a physician shortage, the first place it shows up is like primary care.
You're living a sedentary lifestyle, you're eating like crap, and taking Ozempic. Might be losing weight, but you're losing it in the wrong place.
There's different types of meditation, right? If people pray, that's a type of medication. If you read, paint, color.
I always want to be the best. I don't want to be like the best in Arizona. I want to be the best in the world. Step by step, you try to just continue to improve yourself and see where your next win is going to be. It is important to have like 90-day goals that you can set for yourself and continue to win at that and continue to step up one moment at a time. Doctor's Life Podcast, peek inside a surgeon's brain, as we discuss health, medicine, and lifestyle from a doctor's perspective.
So firstly, I'm curious because obviously I see you running your clinics. I see you in and out seeing patients all day. I want to know what your daily routine looks like. I want to know if you're rocking with the 5 a.m. wake up time, we're doing Pilates in the morning, we're doing making the kids breakfast, or if we're rolling out of bed right at 8:50. And how do you spend your free time after clinic or after your surgeries are done? Okay. I think this is going to give us a good insight as to the differences between your personalities.
2 different things during the week. Most of my days start off like operative. There's 1, maybe 2 days of like a half day of clinic. So if it's operative, I start off with a procedure schedule around 7:30. So
early morning. Early bird gets the worm. Am I right?
That's right. Not a morning person, but I've converted lately.
Thank you.
So those days, I generally roll out of bed, get ready, maybe help with taking the dog out to potty.
Oh, good. So we're making sure the dog's getting a potty in. You're really playing an instrumental role in that as well. That's great.
I try. And then just get ready, get to work, and you get to the hospital, mark the patient up, and get rolling. Clinic days generally start around like 9 o'clock, I would like to say. So those days I really love. We were talking about it like last week. It gives me time to like maybe get a quick like 10 to 20 minute workout in. I'm not trying to stress myself.
And what are we doing for workouts? Are we doing weightlifting?
Resistance bands or beginners yoga. Everything I do is absolutely beginner's level.
And hey, there's always got to be a place to start, right?
Yep.
So we're doing beginners yoga, resistance bands. I think the listeners could take a note or two from this and implement this into their daily routine. We're doing resistance bands on the door in the bathroom. Is that right?
Use the Harambe system.
We're doing the bicep curls.
Yeah, you could do plenty of exercises with it.
So you're more familiar with the Harambe system.
I know it just because of him.
Tidbits.
Just minimize the amount of rest. And I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to be Superman, and I'm trying to protect my joints. So quick workouts, some resistance, get the heart rate going, and then get ready for the day. Pretty much taking Ari to work. Taking Ari to school.
She's working. She's like 12 years old. She's got a 9 to 5. She's got to go to her 9 to 5. She's making money, bringing in bills for the fam.
Sweat factor.
And then after you're doing FIFA.
So after work, my main mode of decompression is still FIFA. It's I've been on a roll lately. I'm up to Division 3. From Division 10.
That's huge, you guys. Round of applause for that.
Ranked 8,000 on Nintendo Switch. I'm very happy about it. On a 10-game winning streak, felt really good. And then I got my ass kicked.
Okay, no worries.
It's definitely by a 12-year-old kid from Guatemala.
And hey, no worries. Learning opportunity, right?
No, I wanted to freaking punch a hole through the wall.
And
It's
that's
not living
okay.
up
And
to.
and that's okay. Cut that. I'm just kidding. Dr. Rozbeh, you're not doing FIFA after work. You're doing something else, I'm thinking.
Today I was in the swimming pool with my son.
Okay.
So he just talks about going to the pool with me all day long.
And we did see your son today. He's
Yeah.
really in a cars phase right now. So
Yeah.
he's doing cars, shirts.
He
Cars
stole
and up.
Steve's car.
And that's fair. So he did steal our surgery scheduler's car, his little toy car. No worries there, Steve. I saw him shed a few tears in the back, but I think he'll be okay. It's no worries. So when are you going to be getting him his first Ferrari? That's my question. I know he's at the ripe age of 2 or 3. So.
Yeah, he already has one. So no.
And that's that's really all we need to know, because he's going to be a race car driver. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
That's
gonna
why
be-
I'm going to
I
use
don't
him
think
to
it-
get my F1 simulator.
Yes.
Thank you. And how early do you typically wake up?
I'm usually awake at around 5 o'clock. My dog wakes me up before I wake up. So
And what kind of dog? Remind me what kind of dog you have?
it's a Havanese. It's a tiny little. midget.
You got a little ankle biter in there.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
she wakes up with the baby, runs across the hallway,
Right.
and comes back, and she's got to wake me up.
She's
every
got
time.
business. She's
Yeah.
got ABC. She's got her
It's a-
timeline ready to go.
It's a Havanese, so it rolls them a mean cigar.
She's got a plan. She's waking you up. She said, we got to get ready for surgery.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to talk to you because we have had in the clinic an influx of patients inquiring about semaglutide treatment for weight loss. And I was wondering if you could kind of speak more on the different types of peptides that are available for weight loss treatment and how exactly they work. Because obviously in pop culture, Ozempic is huge right now. Everyone's talking about celebrities losing massive amounts of weight. They're doing Ozempic. But there are a lot of benefits to these medications as well that are not necessarily for weight loss. So I'm curious to hear what the mechanism of action is and how these medications can benefit patients aside from just losing weight and looking cosmetically.
They don't know exactly what's directly causing the weight loss, but it's multifactorial, and not everyone. There's some people that are resistant to it, but for the most part, a lot of patients with semaglutide, it's about 15% total body weight loss over a 6-month period. With tirzepatide, it's even more, up to 22% in the studies that were done. And it acts on receptors in the brain, which make you think differently about food, and then it acts on the gut receptors to slow down your gastric emptying and also the rest of your intestines, which I think has helped a lot of people with healing, like if they have irritable bowel syndrome and stuff. They feel like it's helped with how their bowels function. People are like, I have friends that they're like, this totally fixed like my issues with irritable bowel syndrome, where like, I don't know, anytime they had a lot of work or they were nervous or something, they were going straight to the bathroom, and they're like, I don't have that anymore. Or just in general, had issues with it in the regular. As soon as they ate, they had to go to the bathroom. And they said it kind of cured that, along with them losing weight. So, the decreased gastric motility, some people think of it as a bad thing, but with appropriate diet and things
What do you
to
mean
add,
by decreased gastric motility?
it's going to slow down your entire gut. So, yeah, some people talk about constipation and the nausea, usually from that. So, by keeping yourself hydrated, eating enough fiber, you can decrease those side effects.
So the constipation is, I like to split it up. Like
Yeah.
we were never taught this, but like pretty much like upper gut, lower gut.
Yeah.
Constipation's lower gut, gastric emptying, those things.
But it's
upper
all
gut. It's all connected,
Yeah.
but your body gives you different like responses.
It's all part of the receptors the same, and the hormones or the semaglutide and the peptides that are going to act on those same receptors. You have it throughout your entire body, so it's going to completely slow down the entire, and that's why you're going to get the constipation and stuff. And you don't, the constipation stuff doesn't come right away. It comes down the line. And the other thing is, because you're not storing as much carbohydrates, you're also kind of dehydrated. Your cells are going to be dehydrated, and it's important to keep yourself well hydrated when you are on these different peptides.
Why is that?
Because you're not storing as much water. You're not going to store as many carbohydrates. So you're going to have to just hydrate yourself more. You'll feel thirsty, but you won't want to drink because...
So most of your body mass and your cells, each cell, majority of the volume is water.
Yeah.
Right? So if your cells, your body is designed to do something in a certain manner, like most efficiently, that's what you've evolved to do, and you're not in that state, you're pretty much like every part of your body's like just getting by. A lot of things can be overcome with just like simple hydration, like daily maintenance of activities, like resistance activities. Hydration can like pretty much overcome that, right?
Yeah.
And with that, it's also particularly interesting to track the progress of, you know, any patient or even those of us who work at the office. We often hop on this scale, but the InBody machine, which gives you a very comprehensive analysis of your weight, and it shows you a nice breakdown of your weight in terms of how much water you're retaining, your skeletal muscle mass versus how much body fat, how much of your weight is, you know, body fat, and even down to, you know, the level of fat surrounding your organs, so that visceral fat level, which is obviously a huge part when it comes to longevity. And the interesting thing that I have, you know, obviously it's been a long debated conversation is, you know, the use of BMI and body mass index in determining a patient's health. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, especially when it comes to patients using peptides for weight loss, because they tend to gain a lot of skeletal muscle mass and lose a lot of body fat. And so their weight kind of stays the same, but obviously, you know, they have much better results. And so BMI is pretty much is negated. There's no purpose in that. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on BMI.
So the whole thing about BMI is like it's made on like a bell curve scale of where you're going to have a higher probability of complications, disorders, stuff like that. Like if your BMI is 2 standard deviations above the average, you're more likely to have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, all this stuff. The one thing it doesn't calculate for is body composition, like what you're talking about, body fat percentage. Because like a bodybuilder, like they're probably at like BMI of 30 or above, right?
Which would be categorized as obese.
Morbidly obese. Like when you go to 30, 35, some of them are literally over 35. Right. Because like what you're seeing them on stage is they've completely shredded like 20, 30 pounds for that performance. So even though most of that's muscle, it's still tissue that same size heart has to pump blood nutrition to. So that's how I kind of look at it, that like you have to keep it in perspective. Either you have to manage weight, and the main things that I manage for myself is BMI and body fat percentage. And I am not good at it. This guy's way better than me. So
yeah, BMI, I've always been on the higher level on the BMI because I'm not that tall. I'm 5'11".
He's
taller than
me.
the average.
Don't call him out like that. Bro's tall. 5'11" is tall. That's gigantic. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude's short.
Yeah, with muscle mass, even like when I played college football and I was in great shape, I was like, my BMI was probably 33, 34. And even doing, you know, all natural bodybuilding, I was probably at 29 or so. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I don't use BMI as much. I think nowadays skeletal muscle mass is huge, especially being on semaglutide and stuff. And going back to it, people on semaglutide and stuff, that's what we got to watch out for. And where people are just going and getting their medications from anywhere, wherever they can find it the cheapest, and not keeping track of, you know, the weight they're losing. Like, you know, they think it's the magic drug.
One thing I've seen is getting a clinic with medical directors.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I saw recently that popped up.
Yeah, and people are, you know, muscle mass is super hard to regain. And like to regain it the right way and to keep it at the right point. Because like with semaglutide and Ozempic, you're gonna lose weight. You're gonna lose muscle mass. You're gonna lose body fat percentage. But like once you've gotten your weight to a healthy level, you shouldn't really like continue to lose muscle mass. Some people are losing just as much skeletal muscle mass as they're losing body fat, and that's going to destroy their bones, and then it's going to be hard to regain that muscle. And to be able to keep the weight off, if you're not regaining muscle mass, your metabolism's not really changing much. So you're not going to be able to keep that off when you are going to go off Ozempic or try to titrate down. So it's very important to kind of keep track of your skeletal muscle mass and see where you're going. You know, I continue to lose a lot of weight, and most of it was body fat percentage. I lost some skeletal muscle mass, but then once I started titrating back, like I was gaining skeletal muscle mass. I wasn't regaining body fat percentage, and my body fat percentage was going down as my skeletal muscle mass
So
was
were you
going up.
putting weight back on, or was your weight?
No, my weight
stable?
was pretty stable.
But
I
body
went between
composition was.
yeah, I went between 190 to 195, but
Yeah.
like my body composition was changing, and a lot of it was just with the addition of like resistance bands. Like I was able to like add 4 or 5 pounds of skeletal muscle mass and continue to lean out the body fat percentage. So, and I think it's a huge point that like people don't understand and they need to kind of take a look at is, yeah, you can go and get the medication cheaper somewhere else, but you got to be tracked and make sure you're not, you know, you're losing healthy weight, because you're going to max out on these medications and spend a lot of money. And then, you know, your body's not going to continue to work the way it's supposed to with the medication.
And
So
you're gonna feel like crap.
yeah,
Like,
you're not going to have energy, and you're not going to lose any more weight.
so you're not gonna
Yeah.
be compliant with continuing that
Yeah.
or want to quit.
Yeah, and
So-
the other thing with me, like, you know, I have access to a lot of different things, like the growth hormone releasing peptides and stuff, which, you know, they add lean body mass and improve skeletal muscle mass. So there's combinations that you can use to
Which
improve
peptide do
your-
you take to increase the amount of tears in your genes?
That's called the BPC.
That's
The blue
BBC.
jeans ripping
Blue jeans ripping peptide.
157.
And that's one of our most expensive and highly sought after peptides, because you have to purchase that look. You can't simply buy the jeans and cut them yourself.
Yeah,
It's got to be done by a
a
designer.
pro,
right?
a pro.
Yeah.
But with that, how, from a doctor's perspective and from a medical perspective, how can people lose body fat and gain skeletal muscle mass, you know, whether it be in a natural way or in combination with
So-
peptide treatments?
So I think research I saw like when they followed 6 to like 18 months out, like 15% of body weight loss is muscle loss compared to 85% being body fat. So that in itself isn't that bad. And it was decreased with resistance training. So that's pretty much one of the main things. Still continue to eat healthy, stay hydrated. Resistance training maintains that. And you don't need like an hour in the gym a few times a week. You literally need like 10, 20 minutes, like 3 times a week is good enough to like make sure that like whatever weight you're losing is mostly coming from fat loss.
Right.
High quality proteins. You got to take
High
high
quality.
quality proteins.
And I think it's also interesting too, you know, the research that shows that taking a look at your specific metabolism and hacking your metabolism to optimize your weight loss results and muscle gain results. I think that's particularly interesting, and especially with the in-body scans that we do, you know, you can get an exact measurement of your metabolism, your resting basal metabolism.
Pretty accurate, yeah.
Yeah, which is really incredible because that gives such a good insight. But then also, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting in terms of, you know, forcing your body into ketosis to lose some of that fat. Do you think, from a doctor's perspective, have you found that has been pretty successful for patients, or do you think that might be a good option for people?
I haven't personally followed people's like scans, weights, body composition from fasting, because it's hard to track and it's relying
Right.
on self-reporting.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of bias there. But like from my own personal thing, like we grew up wrestling, so we had to cut weight. So we're used to fasting and being Muslim also. I did fast for a few years. I think it's healthy. Like a few years ago when I was in training, I started with the keto diet. I dropped down like 15 pounds,
Wow.
and it happened like really quick too.
Yeah.
Within like a month. And then I added intermittent fasting to that and dropped like another 10 pounds. But I felt great, because when you're like, no matter what your body does, it's consuming energy. Most people don't realize you don't need the amount of calories most people consume on a daily
Exactly.
basis. Like when I ate meals, my body shut down, because that's my GI tract, like using up all that energy to break down all those foods. Where if half my body's not consumed breaking down foods, it can be consumed doing other things. You know more about fasting than I do.
Yeah, it's a whole, like we could do a whole podcast on fasting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of thoughts on intermittent fasting. You know, like the way people think about intermittent fasting, it's not the way it's supposed to be done. So it's not calorie restriction. You're supposed to eat the same amount you would in that 24-hour period,
Right.
but in a shorter time period,
Smash
an
it down to
8 hour
8 hours. Yeah.
period. And, to get the benefits, they say you're supposed to do like a 3-day fast, like to really get into that autophagy. But, most people can't do that. I can't do it. But like with the intermittent fasting, you want at least 16 hours of fasting. So usually like go to bed at 8 p.m. or stop eating at 6, 7 p.m. and then don't eat again until like, I'd say noon, 1 o'clock the next day. That's the right way to do it. And you don't need to do it every day. You could do it 4 or 5 days out of the 7 every
And
week.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, you don't need to like feel like you fell off because you missed a day or two.
And it'll give you the health benefits. Then every once in a while you do like the 3-day or 5-day fast, and there are fasting protocols that are very
The
similar.
only time I did a 3-day fast was when Sarah stopped cooking.
So
you couldn't even do a PB&J? You can't make a PB&J?
yeah, so there are
refuse.
these fasting mimicking diets, which you can get the recipes on what you can actually eat during those for the 5 days, which, they have like different mixes of carbohydrates and proteins and stuff and fats, which continue to keep you in the fasting state. So you do get all the added benefits of being in that fasted state. Like I've used the Prolon. I've done it a few times. It cleans your digestive tract, resets your metabolisms, kicks you in autophagy. It's a great way to do it. It's a lot of soups and stuff. Some people do it with their own thing. It's got some protein bars and like
Bone
some
broth.
other, and there's different ways of doing it, and you can get those benefits. And then there's rapamycin, which kind of acts like and gets you into that autophagy that you do get with the fasting state. So I kind of do it all. I usually do the intermittent fasting almost on a daily basis. Once or twice a week, I'll have like something for breakfast, but most of the days I usually
like a good
skip
cleanse,
it.
like P.F. Chang's once a week.
Exactly, coming from the doctor's mouth. So with all of that knowledge, obviously this is stuff that people already generally know. It's important to stay hydrated. It's important to eat healthy, and it's important to get, good quality meats. What is your top recommendation for listeners who are looking to either lose weight, lose fat and gain skeletal muscle mass, what would be your best recommendation for a habit that they could integrate into their daily lives?
Other than exercise, sleep's one of the biggest things that people neglect.
Right.
And like just thinking about it, where like I track my sleep, I have a wristband and I have a ring that track both of them. And when you like eating at different times of the night before going to sleep, like my heart rate won't drop enough for my body to recover. So that's one thing. You want to eat early enough and be like almost in a fasted state when you're going to sleep. And then getting that 8 hours of sleep so you get into the deep sleep. I wish I could get more deep sleep, but my dog wakes me up because she goes and checks on my son
She's
that's
got
crying.
business to take care of.
Yeah.
Ankles to bite.
But the 8 hours of sleep are gonna
hydration, I think, is huge.
Yeah.
But
I
like
think
the sleep's gonna get your body recovered and fully functional for the next day. So you and like some people aren't able to lose weight because they don't get enough sleep and they stress their body and their cortisol's high all the time, so they're not able to lose the weight. So that like there's so many reasons that sleep's important and why people can't lose weight or keep their muscle mass and recovery. And like, and if you look at these super performing athletes, they all make sure they're in bed on, like, look at Michael Jordan, you hear from his trainers, Kobe, all these guys, like, you know, they hit the sack and make sure they get that sleep. I don't know. Someone was saying LeBron like sleeps like 12 hours or something every night.
That's awesome.
It's also cyclical, right? Because like if you lose sleep, you don't have your quality of sleep, it wears on your next day, and your performance throughout the next day gets you off schedule. So it deteriorates your sleep the following night or sleep patterns. Main thing is having a sleep pattern. Like I'm going to get to bed at 9:30, 10, 10:30, whatever time it is that fits your schedule, and base that to make sure, like, I know it sounds ridiculous for some people, but try to get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Like over 7 hours is acceptable, but try to get 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
And
Or
like
be
what I
in
was
bed
saying-
for 8 hours because
Yeah.
you're not going to get the deep sleep or the recovery sleep.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen any research about it, but the reason I say hydration is an easy way, even if you're not exercising, if your body's like properly hydrated, you have like the appropriate blood pressure and heart rate throughout your sleep period. So your your resting heart rate is lower. Like if you do exercise, it's going to lower it more. But if you're dehydrated and not exercising, that's when your resting heart rate will shoot up.
But the thing with hydration is keep yourself hydrated throughout the day and not at night, because you don't want to wake up at night to go to the bathroom and then you're getting kicked off out of your wake,
so
or
sleep
you
wake
can just
cycle.
wet the bed.
Yeah.
No
or
worries.
have a fully catheter
Or
in.
wear a diaper.
Wear a diaper.
The thing I would just say is like stop drinking like liquids like about 2 hours
2 to
before
3 hours.
bed.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours like works best for me, so I don't have to
Right.
get up middle of the night.
So how about if I'm
Emma's
staying
like
hydrated
old
with my
ass, bro.
Celsius all day? Are we good there?
Yeah, but you can't dehydrate yourself with caffeinated drinks all day and then try to
Right.
catch up right before you go to bed, right before you brush your teeth, like chugging like 3-4 glasses of water. That's just not going to work.
Okay, fine.
Another reason, don't drink after brushing your teeth, and why they recommend not eating or drinking after you brush your teeth. Why is that?
I don't know.
Fluoride. And that's another thing that a majority
You
of the
mentioned
general
it to me.
population don't
Fluoride,
know.
blood hypertension, and how it's like just fed systemically.
Oh, well, I just don't use fluoride toothpaste.
But
Oh,
for
he's
most
built
people,
different. No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
So you got to stay away from fluoride in a lot of in mouthwashes, like stuff that's going to kill the bacteria that's producing nitric oxide in your mouth. It's actually been studied. The
why is
patients
nitric oxide important?
because it's going to lower your blood pressure with elasticity in your vessels. So, like people that like are chugging down Listerine and trying to kill all the
You're
bad
not
bugs
supposed
in their
to
mouth.
drink it. Oh my! Are you drinking it?
It's not
Don't drink the mouthwash.
Not if I'm
Spit
not
it
out
out.
of it.
Wait, we need to have a talk, doctor.
But yeah, like if you're killing the nitric, like the thoughts like, oh, I'm killing all this bacteria, but there's good bacteria in your mouth that's helping with your blood pressure. And I've tested myself, so my nitric oxide level in my mouth is actually good.
What kind of tests they do for that?
We're doing
it's just a saliva
NCBI
test.
published studies from his
I
personal
actually have the
COVID.
strips at home. You just take a swab, and then there's supplements to take to improve your nitric oxide level.
But at the very least, I think a good habit, you know what? I'm going to stick with it too. Aiming for 8 hours of sleep every night till the next pod. And I think the listeners should aim to do the same.
Yeah.
At least 7. We'll go at least 7.
Yeah,
Make it a little bit more
that's
achievable.
actually very right. Like at least 7. You're bound to match your deep sleep goals if you're getting 7 hours of sleep, and you have like pretty close to like when you go into sleep and when you're waking up, those patterns. So it's gonna set your tempo.
Unless I'm watching Australian breakdancing competitions, I don't think I can get a.
So what's
like
that
some of
about,
those
by the
nights.
way? Hey.
Some of
hey,
those
what?
nights I can't get enough
Hey.
sleep. I'm watching Australian breakdancing.
Okay.
Actually, it looks like me when I.
That's
can't
going to
get
be
it.
a just
If
you
I
problem, my
drink
friend.
and try to go to bed, that's exactly what I look like.
Speaking of drinking and trying to go to bed, yeah, you got a major headache, right? We were talking about earlier is obviously, one of the procedures offered at the practice that you do quite often is, like a migraine relief type procedure. And we were just talking about the studies on that earlier today. And I'd be really curious because I think a lot of people out there who deal with frequent migraines, frequent headaches, don't necessarily realize that there is a potential surgical intervention out there. And I'd be curious to hear, for those people especially, what that entails and how that works.
So we both performed the surgery. What's crazy is that neurologists, because they're reimbursed, they will inject Botox. So that in itself, what Botox does is it paralyzes the muscle. And what we're saying is that the muscles and fascia around these nerves are so tight. This is for specific type of migraines that are not responsive to medical treatment, because a lot of migraines are not related to this.
Right.
But like talking specifically about migraines
That requires surgical
that are just not responsive to medical treatment, and we're talking about 15 migraines a month, 2 to 4 hours to 8 hours at a time, and requiring multiple disability leaves, stuff like that. Patients really not capable of doing anything. Even like the board of neurology, they're big on Botox. They completely support this, and a lot of neurologists do this, and it's reimbursable by most insurance plans, but they still talking crap about surgical release of these nerves. So, which doesn't make sense, because the only way that Botox would work around this is to provide paralysis of everything, providing the constriction around the nerve. But they're saying, going in there, you need double-blinded studies. And there were many studies done. And I think the people doing nerve releases, they did sham surgeries. Absolutely insane. Like what they requested is completely nuts compared to what for most procedures and therapeutic options would be. So right now, I think I don't even know the numbers on this, but most of the people doing surgeries for migraine headaches is all cash pay.
Wow.
And at first I was just like, because when I was in residency and we were just starting to do it, it seemed like it's something new. There might be that placebo effect, but the more and more research piled on, and the flipping switch for me was the surgeon I was working with to write this paper up. And the last question on every questionnaire was like, well, do you want to add anything? And most of the patients, especially those that responded to the surgery, which was over 80%.
Wow.
If you pick them appropriately, we just just tell this doctor, he gave me a new lease on life. I can't believe what a difference this has made for me. I am a functional human being where like for the last like 2 years, I was hiding in a dark room just to try to escape from my headaches. And you have those comments like, is that placebo? If you hear something like that a few times in a row with like a similar description, it's like, come on, like, let's be real. Like, yeah, you don't want to admit to something, but you are advocating a paralytic injection, but going completely against, as a society, as the neurological society in the US, you're advocating one treatment that lasts 6 months to maybe, and people can build an immune response to it where it goes shorter and shorter.
Right.
And sometimes you even stop responding to it. Yeah. Compared to release that nerve, it's usually short scar surgeries. They're kind of like very minimum. It's very similar to carpal tunnel.
So
surgery.
yeah.
So carpal tunnel,
Minimally
you make an
invasive,
incision
tiny,
here. And
undetectable.
You just release the tight points so the nerve's not compressed. And
wow. But that's the amazing thing. And we'll have to do a whole podcast just dedicated to Botox and, the botulism toxin, because there are so many, I guess you would consider them to be off-brand uses for this drug. I mean,
this one isn't off-brand; it's FDA approved. So, but it just doesn't make sense.
It helps it helps us diagnose people that we can actually treat.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
surgery.
Yeah, if you can find the source of the problem and you can figure out exactly what's going on. But additionally, I mean, with people who experience TMJ and lockjaw, the fact that you can do masseter Botox and that drastically improves the lives of people with TMJ. And even so, I have this weird condition in which I can't burp for whatever sphincter. For whatever reason, I can't burp. The sphincter in my throat will not open to allow me to release gas. And it's not been studied very well. There's a few published articles, but one of the treatments is to inject Botox into the sphincter in your throat to essentially paralyze the muscle so that during that 6-month period before the Botox wears off, you can relearn how to burp. It is truly crazy. I know. I was going to go to Chicago and get this procedure done because there's like one professor who published the article, and I was like, hey, I'm desperate.
We got an ultrasound Botox.
You should do it to me. I'll be your guinea pig.
You got Temu.
Exactly. I can do it myself on Temu. Just give me the Botox. I'll reconstitute it myself. No worries. But truly, it's incredible the different ways that Botox can be used, and not just for cosmetic purposes, but for real conditions.
Functional.
Well, they use it for spastic bladders. I even inject it for, like, some hernia surgeons would send me patients when they had huge hernias to paralyze the abdominal muscles a month before they'd have a hernia surgery. So they were able to so it relaxes the muscles so they're able to get the hernia closed. And the most important part when you're doing a hernia repair is getting that fascia together. And when you're not able to get that fascia together, no matter what type of mesh you use over the top of that, that's not going to heal appropriately, and your risk of recurrence goes through the roof. So this would help them be able to get the abdomen closed, and then they either use the piece of mesh underneath or over the top to help with.
It's also for the muscle to not pull it apart, pull the repair apart during the healing process. Yeah,
we injected it into the pectoral muscles when we used to place the tissue expanders under the muscles to prevent spasms and the pain from that. Also, when we do back closures, we used to use it on the back closures. So, because a lot of people, when they have back surgery, they have a lot of spasms already, and then they get even worse after surgery. So we did it to prevent any sort of spasms afterwards. So there's tons and tons and lists.
And I injected them to my calves regularly because they were getting so big. Sarah was afraid I was going to start cheating on her.
When your calves get too big, when you're doing too many calf raises, I know.
It's just like 100 units in each calf, 100 in each bicep. Keeps my marriage going.
Yeah.
And you can actually...
You want to keep your slim figure, I get it.
You can actually use it for erectile dysfunction too.
Really?
So that's another thing. Yeah.
It is truly wild.
Actually, that's erectile dysfunction. Yeah, like what'd you say? It's like 50 to 100 units.
It's 100 units.
Right in the dick.
Yeah, it is. It
Thank
actually
you.
is.
Hey,
It is.
if it works,
It
it
is.
works.
It is.
Huh?
And it's like guys that are afraid to walk around naked in the gym can now walk around
They
naked in
can
the
do
gym
their thing, let
because
it all hang loose.
it adds girth and their
Thank
muscles
you.
are relaxed. You know, some people use the Trimix, which is a combination of different medications, but this already relaxes the smooth muscles. So you're going to be at rest, you're going to be larger. And even when you get hard, it's going to be larger at that time too. So all in
Well,
all, it's
hey,
going to,
we've learned that Botox can be used for many things, including erectile dysfunction. You can get more girth when you're at the gym naked. Cool.
Less migraines.
We also
Less migraines.
Exact, fewer migraines. We emphasize the
So
importance
head
of
to
sleep.
head, it
Head to
works.
head.
Head
Thank
to
you.
head.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's poetic. And honestly, Shakespeare is rolling in his grave. So we were looking at this article earlier in the day about this plastic surgery practice in the UK called Skin or something like that. And the chaos that has ensued due to its basically being poorly managed.
And
Talk about
disappearing.
that.
Over 70 clinics they run. And it's similar to a lot of places in the US that run a lot of cosmetics clinics. You just have these big, kind of like factories, corporations. If you have more than like 2 to 5 clinics, I would consider that a corporation.
Right. Got
So
all these satellite offices.
yeah, you have to be suspicious at like, how are they making money? And it's only introducing middlemen at every point. And where it seems like all the facts aren't out because they just recently like shut down.
And what happened with the shutdown?
So
What happened?
they had a Zoom meeting and the workers found out like 10 minutes before that like they're shutting down in the Zoom
Wow.
meeting.
And I heard that
yeah.
everyone had invested all this money in their upcoming cosmetic procedures. They
Yeah.
were just out of that money. Just
Yeah,
never get it back.
it's private investors out of money, patients who paid 10, 20, 30
Wow.
equivalents of 10, 20, $30,000. They don't know if they're getting their money back. Employees don't even know if they're getting paid for the last couple of weeks they worked.
Wow.
Last month.
Last month, yeah. So the way a lot of these things work is they buy out different clinics. They pay people hourly, like even physicians hourly to come in and go. So you don't necessarily have that continuity of care. And the way it sells is because it builds that brand. They build so much of an SEO or site optimization
Okay.
where they consolidate clicks, viewers, and then eventually patients. And that's kind of their model of growing, but it introduces middlemen up the ass where like it's just like you got to understand if you're paying less for a surgery
Right.
and there's more middlemen between you and your physician, your operation, there's going to be some shortcoming. Like you're
Yeah.
going to pay for it one way or another. They have different explanations of what might have happened. Some of it's like, oh, it's demand decreased. UK is different than US because it's even closer proximity to places
Right.
like Turkey, which has been a hotspot destination
Oh, yeah.
spot for cheap plastic surgery. So, I mean, we got Mexico, the DR, but they try to make those explanations, but
Yeah.
there's definitely like some
Well,
deterioration
the
in
private
business.
equity take over too. People start to lose faith in their like whatever they even work for. And we see that in the U.S. People don't, a lot of dermatology practices, they're going into the plastic surgery world too, but dermatology practices, med spas, I get emails and calls like multiple times a week
We've been
for
asked to
private
sell our,
equity.
we've been asked to sell our
Yeah.
practice a few times.
Yeah, when you sell out to these guys, yeah, you get a nice payout at the beginning, but you got to work for them for a few years. And then people that actually don't get any money out of it, the associates, they get even more screwed and they become bitter and they don't want to work. So then they don't have enough people working for them, or like they're not happy people and they're not going to perform like how your private clinic's going to work. So they're not going to get the quality of care that they were used to. So you're not going to get as many patients as, and these
You're just
people.
not incentivized as a physician to provide that, because another thing is they don't have the follow-up with these patients isn't set up with your physician.
And all it takes is like 1 or 2 bad board members sitting on top of those private equity firms to just cash out a lot of that money without paying the expenses, and then you're totally screwed, and like you're behind on bills, and all the money's gone.
So what can a patient do who's seeking a reputable office? What can they do to ensure that they're not going to get scammed?
I would say, honestly, for cosmetic procedures, stay away from anything like that seems like a chain restaurant. Yeah. Like that's first and foremost.
Anything that's being publicly traded.
If you're publicly traded, if you see...
Because even air sculpt was a hot commodity, and it's
2
kind
years
of
ago.
Yeah,
and now
and then they were searching. Legal. Yeah, they were searching for physicians to come and join them. They kept on asking us. So they pay us a small fee.
Another main thing is a lot of these places also, the way they make it worthwhile for the physician is you don't need to follow up. They'll do all the follow up. So you want to make sure your pre-op and post-op visits are with a board certified plastic surgeon that's going to see you, because that's kind of like what you're paying for.
Right.
And the prices I saw from like that firm in the UK were pretty close to what you pay for a pretty decent like board certified surgeons in the US. So there's like just no excuses. So you got to make sure what you're paying for. Your post-operative care is very important, because if your post-operative experience isn't as good as somebody else's, that's going to make a world of a difference as far as what your recovery is and what your thought process is from like going through procedure like that.
Yeah, like people ask us to like price match like places like MIA, that's like Chop Shop. They're actually probably adding one to Scott's or somewhere in Arizona. I don't know.
They're going to come around.
Yeah.
They're going to be around.
Yeah.
They'll be here.
Yeah.
They'll be here.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah. When you're doing $4,500 BBLs, I don't know.
Hey, that's going to be your first red flag.
Yeah.
Right
if that's another red flag. If you're like considering a place that's like $3,000 to $5,000 cheaper than anywhere else in that town, you're paying for what you get.
Hey, a $500 BBL though, I'll take it. It'll look good, and then I'm probably gonna have.
That's what you'll say. That's what you'll say, and then you'll get somebody like we've seen. Like people get free silicone injections in buttocks by uncertified people.
I've seen,
and then we literally have to cut off their ass, and then it migrates in their legs.
Their ass is actually like concave. So they have like less ass than they had before the BBL.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things that it happens to you, then you're like, oh, like you're scarred for the rest of your life.
You didn't think about it, and there's nothing to change that. Like,
no worries, that'll be the next trend. We're not doing Kim K butt anymore. We're doing concave ass. Yeah. Okay, so we're doing divot in the ass.
We're gonna
it's
do
up and coming. We're
I think it's called, instead of Brazilian butt lifts, we're gonna call it.
Come on, spit it out. You got this.
It's gonna be a little racist.
the white hick butt.
The white girl butt. No worries. Hey, I'm only half white. It's okay. I'm not offended.
Yeah.
But finally, to wrap up, I want to hear from each of you, what is your number one product or habit that you have been obsessed with lately that has been making a big difference in your life? It could be a product, a habit, something you've been doing on a regular basis, something you've discovered recently, a podcast, a song.
I would say the resistance bands. It could, just because it's 3 times a week, 20 minutes a session.
And where are we getting them? Amazon?
I got that. Don't buy the Amazon ones.
I bought that.
I got the Harambe system. It doesn't matter if you're providing resistance and you're just going at it for 20 minutes 3 times a week. You're gonna do it. It's just probably not going to last you as long or provide as like a reliable resistance.
The main thing is how it increases in difficulty as you go up. With some of the Amazon ones, the rubber, it's like. There is no resistance. With the silicone ones, as you go up, it's going to increase the resistance. So at the end of your movement, have to create much more power. Yeah, so your failure is going to like affect your muscles a lot more. You're going to get a lot more muscle growth with like higher quality bands than going
Well,
with the cheap
hey.
ones.
Okay, so from Dr. Rod, we're doing high quality resistance bands.
That's my one thing.
And Dr. Roos.
So
Ripped jeans.
yeah, ripped
Ripped jeans.
It was when I stood in front of the red light, I think that caused me to get the ripped jeans. So
Red light therapy.
red light therapy, yeah.
And that
So better
significantly helped you as well.
Yeah, for back pain, and also gives you all this energy, and improves skin. So especially in plastic surgery, post-operatively, I think it's gonna make a huge drastic change.
That just about wraps it up. You heard it here. From head to head, resistance bands and red light therapy. We'll see you next week.